Street trees do have a hard life. The most impressive thing I find about street trees is the way they can find places to root in this environment when they've got a road on one side and a building on the other side. Where they're finding space to find the nutrients and the water and hold themselves up is remarkable. There's a lot of utilities running under the pavement, underground cables, water pipes, BT wires, it could be anything really. A lot of times when I've seen a tree's roots exposed, there isn't a lot holding them up. Where those roots are going, it's unknown unless we end up digging up the whole footpath. The thing that surprises people the most about my job is that it even exists, that someone is caring and looking after the tree on their street. The trees need to be cared for and looked after, especially in an urban area. My favorite street tree since I live and work in London has to be the London plane. Its resiliency is completely remarkable. One of the reasons it can live and prosper in this environment is its ability to shed its bark, which gets rid of all of the pollution and any toxins it might have.
An urban forest consists of all of the trees and woodlands within a city, town, or suburb. Amsterdam's urban forest first developed in the 16th century. During the Dutch Golden Age, trees that were planted along the canal walls were planted there both for beauty but also to reinforce the quaysides. The authorities always took their trees very seriously. In fact, it was written in the law book of 1454 that if you damaged a tree, you could actually get a fine or your right hand chopped off. Elms are known as the street tree. They are incredibly tolerant of urban life. They can manage polluted air, salty air, poor soil conditions. In fact, they're quite good at maintaining the integrity of the soil, which is why they were such a logical choice for Amsterdam, because Amsterdam was essentially built on a marsh with loose soil. So many of them were planted that it created a monoculture. And a monoculture is essentially when you choose to plant a single species, when you could choose to plant several different other species. And this is a problem in an urban forest because when you have an urban forest of a single species, it only takes one specific pest or disease to then wipe out your entire tree stock. So Dutch elm disease is very contagious. Typically, if a tree is infected, you'll have to remove all of the other healthy, unaffected trees to stop the spread. It's essentially a fungus that is transmitted through elm bark beetles that then bring the fungus into the tree, which inhibits the water supply of the tree, leading branches to wilt and die. By the 1930s, Dutch elm disease had wiped out 10 to 40% of all elms in Europe. In the 1930s, it reached the US via infected logs that were imported. From there, it decimated elm populations in America, mostly because elms there were less resistant to it than they were in Europe. In Chicago, for example, 120,000 elm trees were destroyed in just 3 years. I think it's fair to call Dutch elm disease a pandemic because if you define a pandemic as a disease that spreads to a wide area, crossing international boundaries and affecting a large part of the population, I think it's fair to say Dutch elm disease has done that. Today it is estimated that we've lost 30 to 100 million elm trees to Dutch elm disease. One of the latest methods to prevent Dutch elm disease is to vaccinate the tree every single year. Vaccination of a tree happens very much like how you might vaccinate a human. You do it via injection of spores under the bark of the tree, and the vaccination induces an immune response of the tree so that it's more resistant when Dutch elm disease strikes. Dutch elm disease vaccinations are important but also costly, but it's much more cost effective than removing and replacing all of the diseased elm trees. So you're always going to have threats in an urban forest, and having diversity gives you a little bit of a safeguard in terms of maintaining the resilience to these threats. Urban forest diversity means that the urban forest is diverse in terms of species, also being genetically diverse, so not all having the same clone of the same species, but also being diverse in age, having older and younger trees. To increase the diversity of urban forests, we need a longer list of usable tree species to plant in cities. As an ecological engineer, I research, design, and pilot emerging technologies to improve the health of street trees, urban forests, and urban ecosystems, and I call that the Internet of Nature. Besides light, space, and nutrients, water is one of the most important things that trees need to survive and live a long and healthy life. Young trees especially need all of the help that they can get. Soil moisture sensors can tell us when a tree needs water in real time, but now with machine learning, we can build a predictive model that takes soil moisture data, soil attributes, tree attributes, and weather patterns to tell us not only that a tree is thirsty now, but that it will be thirsty in 48 hours for 150 liters of water. In the Dutch village of Gijstre, for example, in the south of the Netherlands, these soil moisture updates were sent to a big screen in a neighborhood center so that citizens could actually take action and water the trees instead. Besides soil sensors, there's a whole host of different emerging technologies within the Internet of Nature, from plant identification apps for crowdsourcing biodiversity information, to 3D mobile mapping, to map street tree inventories, to using natural language processing on social media reviews, to using LiDAR, drone, and satellite imagery to get a better estimation of where your urban trees are. Caring for the tree right outside of your doorstep is one of the most tangible impacts you can have. Speaking for the trees and spreading the word about all of the amazing things that they do for us, I think healthier, happier, and greener cities would be just around the corner.